Welcome to the fourth episode of Maldorma TV. I'm Tobias.
And I'm Magnus.
In the previous episode, we talked about our first spiritual breakthrough with the use of psychedelics.
Yeah, we had this amazing experience where we basically connected to God and could feel our own divinity. Our minds expanded throughout the universe, and we felt this enormous wave of love washing over us.
Yeah, and it was also, I have to say, it was a confirmation that you could get this God experiences through the use of psychedelics as well.
For sure. I believed in God and that we are all divine before this, but I had only a belief system that was based on theory. And now actually experiencing it for yourself, it just blew my mind, and all doubts vanished in that instant because the experience was so amazing.
Yeah, for me it was, I had no prior belief of God up until I had my awakening. Then I started thinking about it.
Yeah.
But even after that, I wasn't really convinced that God existed, and I think it was this experience that made me change my mind or made me believe in it.
Yeah, and not only had we the experience of God, we had also the experience of feeling your own divinity as a part of God. I remember very clearly that when this wave of energy swept us up, I could feel that this was my true self. I was coming home in a sense. Yeah. And that was a very powerful experience.
Yeah, and I think it also gave the confirmation, as you said, it's a confirmation that not only is God in yourself, God is everything.
Yeah.
It's not limited to the Christian view that we have, that God is someone else up in the clouds.
Far from it.
Yeah, this was just like, I felt like I was the God experience myself as well.
Yeah, and after this experience, we kind of felt that we wanted to have this experience or a similar experience again.
Yeah, I mean, it was such an amazing experience, so we just wanted it.
And this was a breakthrough experience, and we kind of thought that we knew now how to attain it.
Yeah.
But what happened next was that when we went out for the next journeys, trying to achieve this again, our expectations came in our way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the mind really started to think about the things that were supposed to happen. You were relating back to this prior experience, trying to have the same experience again.
Yeah, the one thing that basically is in our way of attaining our true divine selves are that we have the mind is in the way.
Yeah.
Our thoughts and our doubts, and what happens when you, for instance, meditate or take a psychedelic substance is that it kind of shuts down the mind, or the ego, also called. And now when we tried it the next few times, as soon as we started to feel this feeling that something was about to happen, the breakthrough was near, our mind came in and said, yeah, now it's happening, guys.
Yeah.
And it blew it. It kind of destroyed the entire, because then the expectations sat on, and
it just takes away the experience. And I think that this is the same. I remember when I had this, after my awakening, when I had this week where I just felt bliss.
Yeah.
What I could remember from that is that during that week, I had so few thoughts.
Yeah.
It was more like my brain was just using my thoughts as a tool to solve things, not to make up my reality. I was just present in the moment, and that's something that psychedelics can help you with, and meditation, as you said, just to get away with the mind, to get in the way.
Yeah, for basically the mind shatters all the time for the most of us, and it's 90% of thoughts are just crap, repetitive stuff that doesn't have any use, or and we're not even aware of it.
No, you think about the future, you think about what you're going to do for work next week, even though it's something you can't really or shouldn't even really think about at the present moment. It's just to ruin the present moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's what happened when we went into this experiences as well. It was just, we were just ruining it by thinking of the prior experience.
Yeah, I remember one instance where I was listening to the same song that made us break through the first time, the Starways song with M83. And I tried to listen to that song again, and I tried hard, and I was lying next to the speaker actually.
Yeah.
To kind of get swept in by the music, and I was, without really knowing it, turning the volume up and up and up, trying to really get in the mode.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working. I was close, but I couldn't push through. And I thought then that perhaps if I increase the volume a little more.
Yeah, and I have to say I was witnessing this from a spectacular. I mean, what did you call it? Yeah, as a spectator.
Yeah,
and I was sitting in the sofa and I saw him just turn up the volume, and it was the max. On the speakers.
The speakers sounded really bad. I was about to break them for sure if you hadn't stepped in and turned down the volume.
So I was also noticing. I mean, I'm sure all the neighbors could hear the music. It was just that loud.
Yeah, and I wasn't really aware of this because I was so focused on breaking through.
Yeah.
So I think this was kind of a wake-up call that you can't force this.
No.
And we had to try something new.
Yeah. I think that's when we thought about it and we realized, well, okay, whenever we try this now, we're just trying to chase the same experience. So we decided to try meditation with the use of psychedelics.
Yeah, because meditation is the technique you traditionally use in many religions to attain spiritual experiences and to quiet the mind.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, if you do that together with psychedelics, perhaps it will work.
Yeah, I mean, what happens when you close the mind with the psychedelic experience? It's that experience that you would normally have with just meditating.
Yeah.
Perhaps is that times 100 or times 300. It just becomes even more powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And if you take a psychedelic substance and do not use any special techniques, you most likely won't have any spiritual experiences. If you take enough, perhaps, but it do require some kind of techniques, I think, such as meditation, listen to music, and things like that. And you can learn how to do it, and it becomes easier and easier, as I have done for us.
Yeah.
So we tried out meditation.
Yeah, and I think what meditation does is it allows you to go into the now, and that's really where the magic happens.
Yeah, you close down your mind, you put your mind in one direction, and I always meditate on God. That's the best technique that works. It works best for me.
Yeah, I try to. One thing that I have seen that works quite good for me is I try to meditate with the use of binaural beats.
Yeah.
And that usually gives quite a good experience, even though when I'm sober. At all.
And also just trying to focus on quieting the mind. And I usually, sometimes I focus on the feeling of being.
Yeah.
And that also works.
Yeah. And I think one more thing I just want to mention briefly is, even though when you meditate and you feel that, okay, I can't silence my mind, what I try to do in those situations is that I try to focus on which thoughts are popping up.
Okay.
So I see, okay, when I'm in my everyday life, I'm not perhaps as observant of my thoughts as I should be.
Of course.
But when I sit there and meditate and I have these thoughts in my head, it's easier to observe the thoughts.
Yeah.
Then at least I know which thoughts do I need to work with in order to come to this state of no mind.
Yeah.
So that's one way to use it as well.
Yeah, and we have had a great success with using meditation and psychedelics together, and also perhaps what works the best for me personally is meditation and music.
Yeah.
You meditate on the music and get swept away with that experience.
Sure.
And
so we tried meditation for the first time with the psychedelics, and I remember it was what it's called. It's the Om sound meditation.
Yeah, I had this sound tape from Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, where he had guided meditations. One was called Om meditation, and one was Om meditation.
Yeah.
Om was for morning meditation, and Om was kind of gratitude meditation for the evenings. And we tried out that Wayne Dyer Om meditation.
Yeah, so you put on the tape, and I just remember we were listening to this sound of Om just repeating over and over again.
And the sound of Om is a sound from the Hindu tradition.
Yeah.
And I think it means it's kind of the tone of the universe of God or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to have very powerful vibrations in it.
Yeah, and you could really feel it when you're sitting there meditating on this sound. You could instantly feel that there was something happening.
For sure.
And I just remember when I kept listening to this, and I closed my eyes, I just started to see a small bright light. And for each repetition of the sound, the light just becomes stronger and stronger. And it came so far that I kept listening to this sound, but soon after I started joining in, creating the sound myself.
Yeah.
And that's when the magic really started happening.
Okay.
I was thrown into this room where I could see this light in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
And for each time I repeated this sound of Om, the light just kept increasing, getting bigger and stronger. And it came to the point where, even though I had my eyes closed, it was completely white all around me. And I was just, my mind was blown away by it.
Yeah.
And it came, this was early in the beginning, so I wasn't really comfortable or used to the idea of God.
Okay.
So I decided to, when this happened, when it become so strong, I decided to, just abort it.
Yeah.
But
well, we were beginners back then, of course, and this was very new for us. And I remember also my first try with meditation with the help of psychedelics. I meditated. I think I meditated to a song called Boy 1904 by Johnson Alex.
Yeah.
The album Rice Boy Sleeps. It's a very ambient instrumental song, and I'm not sure, it could have been something else, but I think it was that. And when I meditated with this song, and I went very deep into myself, into my consciousness, and I felt how I went deeper and deeper, and the outer world kind of disappeared eventually.
Yeah.
And what I found in this state of mind was very complete stillness. It was very delightful to be in this state of mind where there were no thoughts. It was just kind of stillness and kind of darkness, not the white thing that you experienced, but still very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, when the light started getting stronger, it became intense in a good way.
Yeah.
But this piece, I'm not sure. It's which one I prefer actually. I think the peace and quiet is more delightful if you ask me. But
as we're going to talk about, I think it's in the next episode actually. You can have very different experiences of this spiritual realm.
Yeah.
You can have these strong forces and also this huge peace and bliss. Yeah.
And both are quite nice to experience.
Yeah, they're two sides of the same coin, I guess.
Yeah. So we realized that meditation was, of course, a really good tool. Both with psychedelics and without. So.
Yeah, but we didn't break through again.
No.
We didn't have the Starways experience that we described in the previous episode. So we tried something else to see if that could perhaps make us break through. And we decided to do something, when we look back at it, was quite foolish, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because we took what Terence McKenna called a heroic dose.
Yeah.
A really large amount of psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah. We thought, I think it was, on one part, it was kind of the ego wanting to, be cool and take a big dose.
Most definitely, you wanted to be in the heroic dose club.
Yeah, and I think the other part was that we hadn't had these experiences in quite a while, so I think we were kind of being quite desperate to attain them.
Yeah, but we was quite cocky about it before we did it, but not after.
No.
It was an humbling experience, to say the least. We have never done it again, and I think God taught us a very useful lesson about our egos and not to be cocky about this kind of stuff, because it's strong stuff and you shouldn't play around with it and disrespect it as we did back then.
Yeah, I mean, it is as I see it, it is a spiritual tool, and if you don't use it in a spiritual purpose and in a respectful manner, I think you can end up with bad experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what we were shown this time. So what happened was that we took a very large amount of psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah.
And very early on, I felt that it started to get intense very quickly.
For sure.
And usually an experience span over some hours, but this journey spanned over almost an entire day, I think.
Yeah.
It was hours upon hours and of very intense experiences.
And I think, as you said, it was right at the beginning, right straight away.
Yeah.
It became really visual. It became intense.
Yeah.
And at least in the beginning, I thought it was really nice. I remember perhaps 30 minutes in or 45, up to 1 hour or something. I just remember looking around throughout the woods and out in the outside, and everything just looked like I was in heaven. It was so beautiful. It was so mesmerizing to be in this state of mind.
Yeah, and I think it was like that for me too. But quite quickly, for my part, it became quite almost too intense.
Yeah.
I was drifting in and out of my body without my will. I couldn't control it. And when I went out of my body, I also remember seeing a lot of dark entities that felt like they almost evil entities.
Yeah, okay.
It was the first time I encountered some kind of dark entities.
Beings.
Beings. And I have done that later on, but I focused on love and really focused on God and love, and they kind of disappeared immediately when I did that.
Yeah.
And that's a technique that always works for me when I go through darker experiences. But soon we was outside in the beginning, and soon I felt it was became too intense, so I went inside.
Yeah.
And I hardly remember this, because from this point on, the experience became so intense and it kept on for hours, but I have almost no recollection of what I experienced because it was probably too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have only one single memory of the entire experience. And that is the one thing I do remember was that I was laying on the floor in my living room, and I could see how golden energy was flowing, and kind of it flowed over the ceiling and down on the walls.
Yeah.
And it was golden, and it was really cool, of course. But I remember saying to you, "What is this, Tobias?
Yeah.
What the hell are we experiencing?" And that's the only memory I have of this experience, at least when it came to the peak of it.
Yeah.
And this peak lasted for several hours. I have no recollection of the peak experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of hours that have gone missing from this experience.
Yeah.
But I also remember we were it was a really hot day outside as well. The sun was out, so I think it was a really bad idea to be lying out in the sun when it started kicking in.
Yeah, afterwards we have read that that's probably not a good idea to be in bright light and hot environment.
Yeah, because that could have perhaps have been, or perhaps the large dosage as well. But for me, when we went inside, I started feeling really nauseous.
Okay.
Really feeling really bad. And I just realized, well, I need to just go to bed and try to just get a hold of myself.
Yeah.
And when I did that, I went to the cabin that you have on your
guest cabin.
A guest cabin. So there was a bed in there, and I just lie down, trying to feel better. But as I lied down, I started feeling more and more nauseous. And the feeling of nausea became so intense and so strong that I started to lose my mind as well.
Okay.
I started feeling like my mind was losing the grip of itself.
Yeah.
And that's something that can usually happen when you take the large dose, this kind of large dosage. The ego kind of fades away or want to fade away.
Yeah, it can't remain.
No.
Attain.
It falls apart.
It falls apart, exactly.
And what I tried, since I was feeling so bad and I just didn't want to go into the experience, I just kept fighting. So it was a struggle between my ego and this experience coming to me.
Yeah, I guess your ego was trying to hold on to this normal reality, but it couldn't.
Yeah.
Basically. And I do think actually from experience later on that when you try to fight this, that's when you get nauseous and have bad experiences. So, but we didn't know that back then, and I think that's kind of increased your level of discomfort.
Yeah, for sure. So my ego was falling apart or dying, as they call the ego death, as they call it, and a temporary one.
Yeah.
And once that was happening, I really, and the nausea just became even more and more stronger as well. I started thinking, I'm going to die.
Okay.
It was such a intense feeling, and the nausea was so intense that I thought that, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
This is going to be my final hours in life.
Yeah.
And I'll just lie there, and when I had this realization, I saw my entire life flash before me.
Exactly like a near-death experience.
Yeah, so I saw that my whole life, everything I've done up until this point, and I realized that, hell no, I can't die right now. I mean, it's if I die now, it has been, such a waste.
Yeah.
To die at such a young age and never getting the possibility to do all the things that I wanted. It was just so I just felt like, shit, I can't die now. And I had this thought in the back of my head of thinking that no one has ever died of this. So just, it's going to be okay. It's
hold
going
on
to be okay.
And go through it.
Yeah, so I kept, that was like my thing that I hold on to in order to get back to reality.
Okay.
So I was able to, I just started to trying to focus on my breathing. And this, now I explain it very fast, but this was during the course of, 2 hours, 1 hour, I don't know.
Probably several hours.
Yeah, I don't know. I have suppressed everything about it, but it was just a horrible experience. But eventually I started finding my breath again, and I started feeling like this nausea just becoming less and less, and it was turning towards the better.
Okay.
So in that moment when the nausea went away, I just had this, it became the opposite.
Yeah.
I was just euphoric because now I was given a chance to survive. I was born. It was like almost like I was born again.
Yeah.
Seeing that life that in that moment seemed so frail.
Yeah.
Was almost gone as I saw it. I don't think I ever was in any real danger, but
probably not.
In my mind, I was close to dying, but now I had I had come back.
I had a similar experience way after this. I was meditating with the help of psychedelics, and
Yeah.
Suddenly I felt like my body was dying.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling of leaving my body, and I had a thought, what if I never return?
Yeah.
I didn't think that I would die in the way that my consciousness would cease to exist, but that my body would die.
Yeah.
And I had left my body many times and never had that fear. So I don't know why it popped up this time, but it was really scary. And I also remember thinking, no, you're probably not going to die. No one has ever died of this.
Yeah.
And of course I didn't, but I can relate to that experience to some extent.
Yeah.
Even though I think yours was more turbulent than mine. It was a smoother experience and not a low dosage as well.
Yeah, and I just remember the feeling when I caught my breath and I started feeling good again.
Yeah.
That feeling, I mean, the contrast.
Yeah.
Was just amazing. I've the happiness of being alive that I felt after that experience, I have never experienced beforehand.
And I think in a way it's a privilege to have had the experience of death, even though it's not a real death, but it's kind of takes the edge off the fears you have for death.
Most definitely. And it gives you you start to see how beautiful life is. You start to appreciate it in a whole new level.
Yeah.
I mean, I in that moment I thought all this is going to be gone.
Yeah.
Everything I have around me now, like my body, my friends, my family, everything is going to be gone.
Yeah.
In a moment. And just when you get to realize that it's still there, you kind of get appreciation for it in a whole new level.
Yeah.
Once you see the other side.
Yeah.
So that was quite a turbulent experience, but I think what I gained from it and what you gain from a near-death experience is just a whole new appreciation of life.
Yeah, and I had my bad times during this experience as well.
Yeah.
Because you went inside after this, didn't you?
Yeah, I think, exactly. I went inside because, I was ecstatic at the time, and I just wanted to go in, and I started trying to explain, and I realized I was still pretty gone.
Yeah, and also when you tried to talk to me, because now I started to have a really bad experience. My memory is back.
Yeah.
And the peak of the experience had faded away, and I was coming down.
Yeah.
And I had no visuals any longer. So normally during this period, you're pretty much your usual self.
Yeah.
But not this time. For several hours, I would think perhaps 5 hours or something. I was completely lost. I was back here in the normal world, physical world. I didn't have any visuals, but I couldn't make sense of anything. When you tried to talk to me, I couldn't put things together. When I tried to think about my normal life, I couldn't really understand it. I remember that I had been meeting a friend the day before, but nothing made any sense. And I thought, now I have done it. I have destroyed my mind. I'm never going to be normal again. And this kept on for several hours, as I said. Yeah. And I was panicking. I really thought, oh my God, we pushed it too far. I have, I don't know, triggered some kind of mental disorder or something like that. And this was really scary. And I couldn't talk to you, and I lay down in the sofa.
Yeah, I think I tried to explain it, but I think I just made it even worse because I tried to explain something and you couldn't make sense of anything. So it just, I think you lie down in the sofa and I said, okay, I'm going to the cabin again and let's talk again in a few hours. Yeah,
and I was lying there and feeling really bad. This was turning to become a really bad experience for me at this point. And I was lying there for some time, and then you came out of the cabin. Yeah. And I was lying in the sofa, and I could see you come out through the window, and our eyes met. And I remember that so clearly because the look we gave each other was, this is bad.
Yeah.
And yeah,
We need to figure this
we
shit
need to talk about this. And then you came in and I said, we need to talk about this if this ever passes.
Yeah.
And then something even worse happened. When you came back in, I had an out-of-body experience. I don't know why, because I hadn't had it for several hours. And I left my body and ended up in this dull, gray, completely empty space.
Mm.
And in this space, I had the feeling of eternity. And that eternity was completely meaningless.
Yeah.
There was no meaning to anything. And what was waiting for me when I died was that I was going to be stuck in this empty, dark, gray space, and it would have no meaning.
Mm.
And that freaked me out.
Yeah.
I was completely...
And that was I can imagine that must have been a real mind fuck. Seeing how you had just beforehand have this more remarkable experience of God. And
well,
at
that point, I couldn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So I was just completely devastated. And when I came back to my body, I felt I can never, ever go back to my normal life after having this experience.
Yeah.
Because I thought I knew that there's no meaning to anything. And when we die, we are going to be stuck in eternity, and meaningless eternity.
Yeah.
And that, so I wanted to die, but I didn't want to die because I knew this would keep on forever.
Yeah.
And I had never felt anything like that. The anxiety was so strong, and I didn't know what to do. Then a few hours later, the effects finally wore off completely, and I came back to my normal self, and I was so relieved.
Yeah.
And I felt, oh, this feels good. But I couldn't drop that experience of meaningless. And then you and me started to talk about, well, wait a minute. A few days ago or a few weeks ago or whatever it was, we had this amazing experience where we experienced God. How can that be possible? How can that be true if this is true?
Yeah.
And we started to think about this, and then we realized that, because I knew from my studies that all experiences are possible, because all experiences are basically illusory, as I explain in my book, The Illusion, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go into details now. But all experiences are illusory, and all experiences are possible. And what I had experienced then was one possible experience that you can have. And you can have the feeling of that it's going to be for eternity.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be that, but you can believe that. As well as you can have the experience of God. So what the spiritual realm was showing us was two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
The dark and the light side. Because contrasts are absolutely necessary for experience to be possible.
Yeah. And I think when you had this experience of feeling hopelessness, what you felt in everyday life, if you feel hopelessness in everyday life, it feels like an eternity when you have it here as well.
Yeah.
In the moment you feel it, you feel hopelessness for an eternity.
Yeah.
But once you have it in this psychedelic experience, it becomes the hopelessness in eternity times a million.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
But when I returned and we realized that, okay, this was one possible experience.
Yeah.
And it was one extreme, and we experienced the positive extreme beforehand. And then I had this enormous gratitude of my life.
Yeah.
I remember we made some coffee and ate a donut or something, and it tasted so good.
Yeah.
And I longed to go to work and meet my colleagues. One of those I really kind of disliked, but I felt I wanted just to hug that person and bless that person for being in my life.
Yeah.
That was how good it felt to be back in my normal self, and that was a very humbling experience. And it turned out, even though the experience itself was really tough, it changed me in a positive way. It made me appreciate life much more, and it made me also realize that I could, in a way, understand the kind of darkness that some people are caught in mentally, and identify with that, and also know that there's a way out. And the way out for me is God, in a way, in a sense.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this, you can apply this to everyday life as well. Going through this tough experiences in life will make you stronger. That's everyone can agree to that.
The danger here, I think, is we had the privilege of having some prior knowledge of how the spiritual principle works and so forth and so on. The principle of contrast, perhaps most important, that in order to have the experience of cold, you have to have the experience of warmth. And also to have the experience of being God, you have to have had the experience of its contrast, which was this hopelessness. So I knew about that principle, so I could put the pieces together afterwards. But I think that if I had completely no prior knowledge of spiritual principles and had this experience, and that was the only experience I ever had, it probably could have devastated me. Quite. Much.
For sure. And I think as well with my experience of after this, what happened was I had such an appreciation. Yes, that you said, I was just, even though the days before I was hating to go to work, now I was just so enthusiastic about doing it. Even breathing air and being in my body. Everything. I just had appreciation for everything.
But basically I think that what we learned from this tough experience was that you have to respect this, and also that it's very good as it is a spiritual tool, and I think it's a very good idea to have the knowledge there before. Well, it's not essential, but at least if you have a bad experience, talk to someone who have had similar experience and perhaps can explain it to you. But in a way, I think bad experience can be very positive if you look at them from the right perspective and put them into perspective. And also, I think when you fight the experiences, that's when it can get kind of nasty. If you go with them and focus on love and God, I think you pierce through the darkness and see afterwards why you had to go through this.
I mean, what happens if you get caught up in the mind? That's when it starts to happen, because what happens when you go into this experience, that the mind doesn't want to be there anymore. And as soon as you grab onto the mind or any feeling or any thought, you just go back into that experience, and you trying to go into something that's just trying to survive. So
don't follow the feeling of fear. Basically, follow when you have feelings like fear and panic. I think it's best to focus your mind on love and God, and that always works for me. I didn't do this that time because I didn't have the experience. But I do now, and focusing on love and God, I can go through tough times at times nowadays also. But then I know that if you focus on love, you will pass through it, and you will have a positive experience that will explain why this was all about, what it was all about. And mostly it's about facing your own fears.
For sure. And I think one thing I realized after all this as well is the importance of accepting death or learning to die. I mean, it's something we don't want to talk about in society. Talking about death, it's unheard of. We don't want to think about it because we don't know what happens. And I think that kind of creates a problem for us, because we are constantly, since we have this fear of death that we're not confronting, we have this fear of death that is constantly in our life that we're struggling with.
Yeah.
Even in our everyday situation, if you go into psychoanalysis, you see that everything is made up of the ego trying to survive. You're trying to be, even in social situations, in your family, you try to get in positions where you can assure your survival. Even though it might seem far-fetched that you take a certain position in a group, but it's you can trace it back into your what do you say, your fear of dying.
And I think it's very important to have the courage to look at your fears and confront them.
Yes.
Because when you do that, you will overcome them.
Yeah.
But if you run from them, that's when they get nasty and they will hunt you down.
For sure.
So it's so important to embrace your own issues, your own fears. And during these kind of experiences, they will manifest in different ways. And I think you, in a way, you are creating these scenarios yourself in order for you to confront them. And well, it's useful lessons, and we need a part of the spiritual practice is to confront your own issues and fears.
And once you go beyond this life of just trying to survive, or just trying to live by your fears of not existing, once you have learned to go beyond that fear, then that's where the real life happens. It's kind of like you need to learn how to die in order to live.
When you accept death, that's when you really start to see that life is in this moment. And it's beautiful as it is.
And you get I think what the spiritual practice that we have done, or the spiritual knowledge, is it makes it easier to accept death. Because now the material that we present in the books, and as well as Martinez has presented it, has helped in tremendous ways to see that, all right, when life is over, we have an explanation of what could have happened next.
And of course we have the privilege of have had the experience of our divine consciousness without our bodies. So we know for a fact through self-experience that we are not connected to our body, and when it dies, it's not the end. Of course, not everyone have had that experience, but it's there for people who know where to look, I think.
I mean, if the afterlife, or what you want to call it, is anything like the experiences we have had, I think it's going to be quite an awesome time. It kind of, but it kind of gives you also the perspective that, okay, that is coming. Something awesome is going to happen later on. But I'm here now, so I'm just going to try to appreciate this as much as possible and get ready for that when it happens.
And the key to get there is to accept this first.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're going to be stuck here until you learn that anyway, so.
I guess so. So that's, I guess that's the whole purpose of the existence. In short words.
Most definitely. And so that's basically the story we want to talk about in this episode. A very bad experience that turned out, when you look back at it, to be a positive one anyway.
Most definitely. As I said, it's confronting death was perhaps one of the most life-changing experiences of my life, to the positive.
And this experience really made us more humble at least. And kind of pushed down our egos quite a lot. So after this experience, shit really started to happen. Positive experience started to pop up in quite a rapid pace, and we broke through many more times.
Yeah.
So this was kind of the slap in the face from the spiritual realm, I think.
Yeah, I think we took some well-needed rest after this, but after this we were quite persistent that this is not going to be the end, so we tried again and we had some quite nice experiences.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah. So I think we're going to end this episode right here.
Yes.
Be sure to go to maldorma.com for the future episodes, or if you want to watch the previous episodes, they're all listed there.
Yeah.
Be sure to check out Magnus's book, which is released, The Illusion.
Yeah, The Illusion is available both in physical book and as an ebook, and there describe the important spiritual principles that governs our universe and our consciousnness, and try to describe what consciousness is and how it works and what happens when we die and things like that.
Yeah.
And I also describe all of the important experiences that we have had on psychedelics.
All right.
Yeah, and please visit us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram if you want to as well.
Yeah. So I think that's it.
Yeah. Oh, also, Tobias have an upcoming book called Stepping into Unknown, and I think it's going to be a really good book, and we hope it's going to be released in the late 2015 or perhaps early 2016.
Yeah.
Hopefully. We don't know for sure when it's going to be out, but keep an eye out for it.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.